Good afternoon. Wow. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Deji. I'm one of the lecturers here within the business faculty. Hello, everyone at home. Forgive me, I'm not used to hearing my voice project this loudly. Welcome, everyone. I hope you can tell we're really excited to have you guys here. And we're actually quite impressed that you've made it all the way out and you're considering this sort of support for your future studies. Just obviously, we're talking, or maybe not so obviously, we're talking about marketing. Yeah, we're talking about marketing. And this is a topic that, in my opinion, is probably the most significant aspect of business. And hopefully you'll see why as we talk this through. Yeah? Okay. So hopefully we all recognize this face. Now, you want to be like this guy? Let's talk marketing. Yeah. And I know a few movies have come out that paint him in not so good a light, but from a business perspective, this is one of the great marketers of our time. And this is one of the resources that we'll be using to understand this concept even better. Yeah. Okay. So Steve Jobs, why was he and Apple so successful? Yeah. And just really quickly, by a show of hands, how many people here own an Apple product? And at home, I suspect similar numbers, right? Now, if I'm to ask us, well, why do you have an Apple product? You'll tell me about features and all these other things. Well, I'll disprove that as we go along, right? There's a reason for this, and it's marketing. It's actually marketing. Yeah, okay. So, many people, when they think of the concept of marketing, they think of advertising, right? You think marketing, you think advertising. Now, that's a significant part of it, but one of the things that a lot of us fail to understand is that marketing covers the fullness of the business. Or, in fact, it applies to you as a person. If you are going to be successful going forward, you need to understand marketing and how it applies to you as a person or to any product or service that you're involved in. Yeah. So yes, advertising is significant, but as the slide says, today there's a strong chance that you're going to be exposed to up to 5,000 forms of advertising today. If I'm to ask you, you'll say, well, if I ask you, well, how many forms of advertising have you been exposed to today? You might say, 10, 20, right? But there's so much of it that we actually tune the vast majority of it out, right? It's just human nature, right? When there's a sensory overload, we start to tune things out, right? But effective marketing enables us to cut through that clutter, right? It's almost like a bat signal, yeah, to the people that your particular product or service is targeted to, right? They will cut through everything else and see you, and that's what we want. Yeah. Okay. So, marketing is easy to understand, but it could take a lifetime to really master, right? If every business got their marketing right, they'd all be successful, but most businesses fail, right? So yes, the concepts are not that hard to understand. They're just difficult to actually implement effectively, right? But whomever gets it right wins. Yeah. And hopefully it's not a bad example, but even Pamela Anderson, Baywatch, right? She gets that she's not a great actress. We can make fun of her all we like, but at the end of the day, she's got her marketing right? And thus the success. Yeah. Okay. So what is marketing? Now, this is a sentence I want us to remember. Yeah. There is many definitions that you can find. A quick Google search will show you several definitions of marketing, right? But the most basic, my preferred definition is this simple one: building profitable relationships with your target customer, right? So let's remember these key words: building profitable relationships with your target customers. And we'll come back to this sentence at the end, yeah, and why marketing is the key to achieving that. Yeah. Okay. So the 4 Ps. Hopefully we're all familiar with the 4 Ps of marketing. Yeah. Product, price, place, promotion. Right. But it's not that easy. Right. Because there's one word that ties it all together: the right product at the right price. Right. through the right place and promote it the right way, right? So this is where most businesses will fall short. What is the right product? What is the right price, place, and promotion strategy? Yeah. And even within each, right, when we say product, there's different things that make up a product. There's the core product, right, the actual product, the augmented product, right? We really want to understand the core product. The core product is at the heart of, this is the real benefit people are seeking from our product or from our service. Yeah. You don't buy Apple products because of what it actually does. That's the actual product, right? You buy it because of the core benefit, right? Which is, believe it or not, it's more about acceptance. It's more about seeming up to date, right? You know, all of my friends have one, right? You don't know all the intricate features and all that kind of stuff of an Apple product, but you have one. Yeah. There's a different benefit that you get from an Apple product. From a Mercedes-Benz. Is it really transportation? Right? No. Right? So there's a core product before the actual product, the actual tangible product that we see in terms of the actual service or whatever it is that we're getting. Then there's the augmented product. These are the extra features, the extra benefits like a warranty, right? A particular service package, other things that might come with the product that we might pay for, right? Then we go to price. I'll ask a question now that we'll come back to at the end just to save on time, but I want you guys to think through the answer to this question. What is the right price? Just in general, for any product or service, what is the right price? Yeah, so think about that. We'll come back to it. Yeah, because this is critical if we're going to make a profit, right? This is the one aspect of the marketing mix that directly contributes to our ability to make a profit, right? Because that's where the numbers come in. Yeah, and then there's different pricing strategies that we can take, right? We can use a skimming strategy. Like if we just launch a new product, we can price it to where we skim off the top, like we charge a high price to introduce it, right? So that we kind of make up for maybe how much we spent to develop it, right? And then lower the price. There's a market penetration pricing we can do just to enter the market with a lower price. We could also price just based on what everyone else is charging, right? You know, if you know, there's a concept called price points, where if I'm going to start a cafe and sell coffee in Sydney, I know that I should be thinking right in about $3.50 for a cup of coffee for a small, right? Even before I do anything else, right? I don't just launch and start selling coffee and think, well, I'd like to charge $7. That's not impossible, but you know, I need to have a reason for $7, right? So, you know, even what everyone else is charging should play a role in our price. So remember, what is the right price? We'll come back to that. Place, right? How do we get our products to our customers? Everything to do with the point A to Z, like the distribution of our product or service, right? What is the right place, right? So, you know, it's as simple as this. If I ask you, do we all know the brand Louis Vuitton? Okay. Some of the guys might not, but imagine if Louis Vuitton were to open up, I don't know, if they open up an outlet in Blacktown, right? Now, not to say that people there cannot afford Louis Vuitton, but when you think of that brand, right, and who it's targeted to, right, where people go to buy it needs to match with that as well, right? Do we all know the Iconic? The Iconic online, right? This is an online fashion retailer. Today, there's tens of thousands of online fashion retailers. What makes that work? It's their thinking through, wait a minute. People normally, when they buy online, they're used to, one, having to wait, right? And, you know, basically not being sure of what you're getting. So they figure rather than have websites, maybe just based in the US, it's actually a multinational company, right? They figure in terms of place, let's cut through the clutter and make locally available sites. So when you buy from the Iconic, you can pay to have their products delivered to you in a matter of hours, right? So they just thought through, okay, in terms of place, we don't want to open up actual retail stores, but if we're going to sell online, what can we do in terms of place to get an advantage, right? And one of those is you can buy something from them, like if it's before noon, you can possibly get it in time to go out that night with what you bought. Yeah. And then promotion. So the one part that the average person thinks of when they think of marketing all falls under the promotions mix, right? Which is any form of communication, what you're telling people about your product through advertising, through public relations, through personal selling, telemarketing, any form of communications about your product falls under promotion. But guess what? It doesn't work as well if it's not tied to a certain product, right, at a certain price, distributed through a certain way for it to work, or at least work well. Yeah. So the right product, price, place, promotion, you get that right, you're guaranteed success. Now, this has been extended to 8 Ps, right? I feel like much of what we need to cover is really under the 4 Ps, but for services, just to further clarify, we've extended this to 8 Ps, right? So other things like people, right? People, the right people, quote unquote, also help you in terms of targeting your customers. Google, right? As a company, they're heavily reliant on the right people with the right sort of skill sets, right? That's why they're so dominant. If I go to same thing, going back to Louis Vuitton, if I walk up to a Louis Vuitton store, I expect the staff there to be a bit more knowledgeable, right? Maybe a bit more professional, right? Than if I went into Target. Imagine if you went to shop at Target and someone shows up, like you're browsing around, someone comes up to you in a suit, they're like, oh, can I help you, miss? And, right, giving you that hands-on service, you're like, wait a minute, like, are you trying to kidnap me or something, right? It's not, you get what I mean? You don't expect that from Target, right? So even people signify something. Physical evidence. You can also target your customers effectively through the physical evidence that you provide. If you're looking to grab a quick bite, like you're going to leave now and grab something to eat, and you see a store where just looking in there, you see just fine linen tables, you see the wait staff with their hands behind their backs, right? When they're serving people, they're doing this thing, right? For a quick bite, no one needs to tell you that that's probably not the place, right? Because in your mind, that physical evidence, right, the decor, the way the place looks, how it's presented, the level of professional says that's not a place for a quick bite, right? Processes, right? Even the way that you do things, right, give you a competitive advantage. A comparison I like to make here is between Apple and Dell computers, right? Believe it or not, Dell computers could be where Apple is today, right? If not for Steve Jobs' marketing, right? Like when I was you guys' age, Dell was just as cool and trendy as Apple is now, right? But they missed the boat. But they're still around. They just have a completely different process, right? So for Dell, does anyone here own a Dell by any chance? I didn't expect you to, that's fine, right? Hopefully someone does at home. But Dell, their process is what's kept them around. Rather than walk into a store and buy a ready-made computer, they've built a whole process for their business whereby you can build a customized computer on their website, right? And get it in the same amount of time as though you had ordered a ready-made computer. Because think about it, when we normally buy something online, we expect to wait. And if we have something customized, we expect to pay extra, right? To have something, but no, right? So their process of allowing you to customize a computer, build one to your specs, and still get it quickly at a reasonable price, right, is what's kept Dell around, right? And then partnerships, who you choose to partner with. Now, everything that we're saying right now about marketing applies to you individually. You don't even just have to think, oh, okay, well, how do I apply this to business? This applies to you as well, right? We're all coming out of high school, right? We all know that we establish our place, right, in terms of who we make friends with, right? So, I come from Chicago. Like, for us, do you guys know the term jocks? Right? I don't know what the equivalent is here, forgive me. But, the jocks hang out with the jocks. Then there's the nerds, and there's the pretty girls, right? Because and it signifies something. I'm with this group, right? So people, so same thing in business. Has anyone realized that when you go into McDonald's, you can only buy Coke products, right? And then Hungry Jack's, you can only buy Pepsi products, right? So even the partnerships, right, that you choose can also further target your customers. Yeah. So getting these 8 Ps right, yeah, is where the opportunity is. If you get this right, you're guaranteed success as a person and as a business. But it's obviously not that easy. Yeah. Okay. So what does marketing involve, right? The short of this is, as a marketer, you're like a sociologist, like a psychologist. You're trying to understand your target customers better than anyone else. Maybe even better than they understand themselves. You could say that Steve Jobs achieved this, right? He had the foresight to realize that he could completely change the way that people viewed personal computing, right? So you want to be customer focused. Even if you have a product or service that you're passionate about, you want to start thinking in terms of, well, what are the motivations of my target customers, right? What are the things that make them tick? What are they really concerned about beyond just what my product does? Yeah. You want to understand the markets that your product is in. And what is it that represents value to your target customer? Yeah. Okay. So just repeating what we said earlier, we're trying to produce the right product at the right price, distribute it the right way, right? And then send the right messages about it that matches that. Yeah? Okay. So we said earlier in that sentence, right? Building profitable relationships with our target customers, right? So we're trying to establish relationships. Because guess what? If someone buys from you simply because you were the only option there, right? Or you just happen to be there, that's not effective marketing, and you can't count on that, right? As a business, you don't want to count on just random purchases just because you happen to be there and there was no other choice, right? You want to establish a relationship, right? Because think about your personal relationships, right? Think about what more that you're willing to do for someone that you have a relationship with versus a stranger, right? The same thing applies to products. And so we want to establish relationships, right? Customer relationship management is key to effective marketing, right? And why? Demographics are changing, right? Society is changing as a whole, right? Things are constantly changing, and so if you don't have a relationship with your customers, just changes in the society can move them away from you, right? More sophisticated competitors, right? This is the most competitive business landscape in the history of mankind, right? With Google and others, the information is there for people to just copy and, replicate or even improve on what you're doing, right? But same thing as when you have a relationship, think about it. You have a boyfriend or a girlfriend, there's all these 7 billion other people out there. Some of them might find your boyfriend or girlfriend pretty cute, right? But then a strong enough relationship hopefully shields, these other people from them, right? I know it's funny, but hopefully it gets the point across, yeah? Production over capacity, yeah? And fewer customers. So the short of all this is we're in a hyper-competitive business world, right? And it's only those companies that are able to establish a relationship with you guys, like Apple has, obviously, right, that stick around. Yeah. And we'll come back to this. So look at these folks, right? Now, normally, you see people like this. This might be some of you guys, so I won't make too much fun. But, this is normally a show of being homeless, like being homeless, right? But do you think any one of these people is homeless? No, right? They're gainfully employed. These are people with jobs. But they're willing to sleep outside and wait just to be the first to get this product. And they'll celebrate like they just won something. No, you just paid a lot of money. But you feel like you've won something. Right? I mean, this is the truth, actually. I know of people that would pay someone else, right? So the last iPhone that came out, they paid someone else $20 an hour to go and sit out here for them, right? Before even, the actual purchase of the product, right? Now, you want to talk about a relationship, right? So this ties into that sentence again, building profitable. So think of that word profit. Building profitable relationships with your target customers. When you have people that are willing to do this, right, you're set. Okay. So, skip here. Okay, so to achieve all this, right, I said earlier, you want to be a sociologist and a psychologist almost, right? You want to understand what is going on in the world around you, right? To be an effective marketer, you have to know what is going on around you, right? You want to be socially aware, right? And, there's two major environments that you exist within. There's a micro environment and the macro environment, right? Micro, right, as in small, right, or tiny or close, right? So the micro environment, this is pretty much the environment around you that you have some level of influence or control over, right? So the actual staff that work within your organization, your competitors, right? Suppliers, intermediaries like, other retailers that might sell your product, right? Customer groups, the local community within which your business exists. So this is the environment surrounding you that you have some influence over, right? You want to understand what is going on in this environment, right? What are the trends? What are people thinking? What are the issues and problems? How does my product or service address that, right? And then the macro environment, right? So this is just the world that you exist within that you don't necessarily have any influence on, but you also want to know what's going on there, right? You want to know what's going on in the world around you. We don't just want to understand this, we want to preempt it. We actually want to think ahead to say, well, where is my world going? And what does that mean for my product or service? An example here could be Blockbuster. Do you all know Blockbuster Video? Yeah? Okay. For me, growing up, Blockbuster Video was like, it was just everywhere, right? There were almost as many Blockbusters as there were McDonald's, right? It just, you went to McDonald's, you got a pizza, you went to the video store to rent movies, and then you went home, right? But what's happened? The world has shifted. Blockbuster didn't do anything wrong. The world around them shifted in terms of technology, right? To where the nature of what they offer is not as relevant as it used to be. So yes, they still exist, but at a much smaller fraction of what they used to be, right? So we're looking at economic forces, changes in demographics, technology, the environment. All of these things, even just society, in terms of the way people think, right, could affect your product, and you need to move with those times. It's not by chance that McDonald's, the fast food king, now has a whole healthy range, right? They didn't just decide, oh yeah, let's just do that. That's in response to changes in society. As people are more health conscious, they need to move with that. So what do? You want to scan the environment, right? Both micro and macro to understand what's going on, right? And then you want to think to yourself, right? What strengths and weaknesses internally or within the micro environment do I have, right? And out there, right, maybe in the macro world, right, what opportunities exist for me? And what threats stand in my way, right? And this is what's happened to Blockbuster, to Dell, right? The threats. What they didn't realize as threats, as in changes in society, changes due to technology, right? They didn't realize those things were coming, and thus they've fallen behind. Apple, on the other hand, right? They've realized that, hey, this is the direction that, or at least Steve Jobs did, this is the direction that society is going. I'm going to be one of the people that leads that charge, right? Into a world where everyone is plugged in, they have handheld devices, and right, and there is also a brand that people can belong to. And thus, I asked the question, how many people have that product? And everyone raised their hand, right? So you want to be, as a marketer, thinking, what are the strengths that either I have as a person or this company, this business has, right? Internally. What weaknesses do we have? And what does that mean relative to potential opportunities or threats, right? Are there strengths that I have that I can use to block threats, right? Are there weaknesses that I have that by improving on those weaknesses, I can take advantage of opportunities, right? So a SWOT analysis is, it's very basic, but it's one of the most effective tools for you as a person and for business, right? What do I have relative to the world out there? Okay. Then we're getting into maybe what some people find to be a bit tricky, which is segmentation, targeting, positioning, and branding, right? But this is where marketing gets really interesting and exciting. Yeah. So to segment, right? Or this is another question that I'll ask and then I'll come back to, right? Well, why do we segment? The word segment means to divide, right? You have segments, means you portion things off, right? But why segment? Why not just try to sell to everyone, right? And I'll ask you guys, well, is there any product you can think of, and we'll come back to this in the end, is there any product that you can think of, or any product category to where you don't need to segment, you just sell it to everyone, right? So just think of that in the back of your mind, and in fact, chances are you'll think of what I'm saying, probably something like water, toilet paper, hopefully, right? That should be for everyone, we would hope, right? We would hope. But we'll come back to this, right? So funny enough, I'll actually have you guys on your phones or on your tablets look some things up later that relate to this, yeah, because I'll have you search for something. So yes, we want to segment, right? And we'll come back to why. So there's different ways to segment. We can segment demographically, right? Just different social demographics. We can segment by geography, just where people are, right? We can segment by psychographics, like the way people think, like psychology, right? And behavior, how often people buy, right? How people behave relative to our products, right? Okay. Now targeting, so once we've decided on a particular segment to focus on of the market, right? We then want to come up with a targeting strategy. Because even within segments, right, there's still, just because you're part of the same segment doesn't mean, you can have a twin sibling and you could be completely different consumers, right? You could be, into completely different things. So even within segments, so let's say we've chosen a demographic of 18 to 24, living in Sydney, Australia, going to uni, whatever else, we still want to target particular groups within that segment, right? And so, using the example of Forever 21, right? So the name, do we all know the store Forever 21? Yeah, okay. So the name kind of suggests who that is supposed to be targeted to, right? But really think this through. Who really buys from Forever 21, right? Probably everyone else but 21-year-olds, right? Everyone that wants to be 21, which is pretty much you guys, right? 16 to, 18. We might have some 30-year-olds, some 35-year-olds, and then some 40-year-olds that need to relax, right? But it's a great strategy to name it Forever 21, right? When you target, don't think that you're limiting. You're just sending that bat signal. You're sending that clear message. Hey, this is who this is for. So if you want to be part of this group, right, buy from us. Yeah. Okay. And Apple, right? Apple has done a great job of targeting. In the early years, right, when I was maybe slightly younger than you guys, I saw the start of Apple. It was different. It was edgy. It was for a particularly unique, more artistic, group of people. But by doing a good job of really targeting them and making them feel like they're special as a group, right, they have then grown this company to what it is today. Yeah, okay. Then there's product positioning. Yeah, positioning. So the first thing I want to say about positioning, it deals with perception. Right? So what is perception? Perception is the way you see things, right? The way you see things. And yes, we're looking at Miley Cyrus from, or Hannah Montana, right? What happened there, right? Repositioning. So positioning is what? The way the position you hold in your customers' minds relative to other products, right? And we do this with everything. We do it with people, and we do it with products as well, right? We think high price, high quality, right? Or practical versus stylish, right? And then we position different products in those categories, right? So what has she done, right? People might think, oh, no, she's fallen off the rails. No, this is smart. This is good marketing, right? I can guarantee you, give it another 5, 10 years, and she's not going to look like that anymore. She will reposition to be, I don't know, an actress, whatever else. Yeah. So with positioning, we're working with a perceptual map. Remember, perception, the way you see things, right? So we have Apple, right? Relative to, the images there are not that good, but we create a perception in our mind of, okay, this product, for its price and its quality, right, for its functionality versus style, where does it sit relative to other products? It helps your customer, right, make a decision about what product category you're in, right? That's one of our jobs as marketers, is to make the decision easy for our customers, right? Okay. And last but not least, branding. Branding. This is key, guys, right? Branding. In a hyper-competitive world, right, one of the best tools for standing out is an effective brand. One that people recognize, right? One that people feel an attachment to, right? One that people trust. Yeah? So what is a brand? A brand is like your reputation, right? Your image, what people associate with your product or service, right? If the more clear that is, right, the more successful you will be as a person and as a company, right? So Apple, Miley Cyrus, Oprah Winfrey, Australia as a country has a brand, right? Before coming from Chicago, right, I was clear on the Australian brand. Laid back, friendly, beaches. Now, whether that's true or not, the more clear that is, right, the more tourist dollars that the country can count on. The more people might want to move here, right? So, what are the key aspects of a brand, right? Awareness, right? Just knowing what this brand is, that they exist, and in which category that they exist in. Quality, your perceived quality of the brand, right? Your brand associations, what you associate that brand with. And brand loyalty, right? How loyal people are to that brand, right? i.e. Apple, right? So why do we do this? The advantages of establishing a strong brand, and it relates to that first sentence we said before. A strong brand, right? Allows you to achieve greater loyalty, right? You get to charge more for your products, right? Same thing, right? As a close friend, you do more for them, right? Same thing applies to a product or service, yeah? So going back to that first sentence, building profitable relationships with your target customer, right? So if you get this right, what is profit, right? Profit is how much you get to take home, right? So you charge a certain amount, right? Relative to what it costs you, right? That's your profit. But guess what? If you're spending, so think about it, with Apple, probably one of the more expensive brands out there, right? But why are we willing to pay that much more, right? And why are we so loyal to it to where we'll sit outside? We'll even persuade other people to buy Apple products, right? So guess what? They're spending that much less on advertising, right? Suppliers and vendors are willing to give them a better deal because it's Apple, right? So you see that their costs are actually going down and you're willing to pay even more. What does that mean for profits? Look at the relationship. My own brother once, like we were talking on the phone and he goes to me, I'm an Apple person. How could you not have an Apple product? Kind of judging me, his own sibling, to be like, oh, you're a Neanderthal because you don't have an Apple product. How much more effective than a TV ad is that? Right? So you talk about a relationship. And what do you do with a relationship? You keep going back. You buy more often. You pay more. Right? So they've done this by having a target customer, right? So going back to branding, they say, Apple, think different. Anyone that wants to think different and be an innovator, or at least see themselves as such, get an Apple product, right? And so by targeting their customer really well and building that clear brand image, right? They've been able to establish now what's a global relationship, all of you, right? That equates to more profits. Yeah, and that's what marketing does. Okay, so I wish I had more time, but that's my quick spiel into marketing. Now, Greg will lead us in a bit of a Q&A.
Well, actually, I just thought, if someone can please ask some questions, I just thought that was sensational. Just to support you on that, I sent my son a message while you're talking. He works at Apple, and he's just like one of those dudes you're talking about, your brother. I said, listening to marketing lecture on Apple, and I'll put in the Gamoji. And he said, I bet it's interesting. And I said, yeah, sure is. The trouble is he's from Chicago and not 49ers. So, and I've got another teacher, mate, if you criticised Apple and I text him, he would vile and threaten you with life. So, okay, we must have some questions because that was phenomenal. We learned about Iconic, Blockbuster, Beyond 21, was it
Forever 21.
Forever 21, I never heard of that store. Louis Vuitton. Right, has anyone got any questions? Because that, seriously, I love marketing too, and you really got me thinking, and I was thinking. Well, if no one's got questions, I'll fire one at you because I just want to keep listening to you talk about marketing. It's so clever. Question was, and I had a few here, you mentioned Miley Cyrus, and I was thinking of Justin Bieber, how he's rebranding. I think he is, isn't he? His music's quite good now. How difficult is it for a company like Dell and Kodak by the wayside and Blockbuster, how difficult is it for them to rebrand successfully?
No, great question. Thanks for that, Greg. So the question being, how easy is it for great brands like Kodak, Dell and the like to rebrand? It's very hard. And specifically because they're already great brands. We already know them for something. So at some point, they have done the job of, etching into our minds, this is who we are. So changing that, it's not impossible, but it is a challenge, right? And it takes just going back to the basics, right? Looking at, what is the environment around us? And what does that mean for a product like us? I love that, Greg, you asked about Kodak, right? So you guys, you're mostly young here, but for us older folks, we remember a time when Kodak was the Google of images, Literally, like when you thought of any kind of imagery for film or photos, it was just Kodak. But even the mighty Kodak has shrunk because the world has shifted and they didn't shift with it, right? So for a company like Kodak to rebrand itself, yes, they absolutely need to make themselves more relevant today because they have that name that people have moved on from, right? Same thing like a person, right? Like a person in when you knew earlier, they were just this like druggy, troublemaker, or whatever else, and everyone knew that, man, stay away from this guy. He's a mess, right? For that guy, because he got known as that, to change, it's that more of a stretch versus someone that was also a druggie and all this, but we just didn't know or didn't know as much. So it's definitely not impossible, but it is for them to go back to the basics, to re-examine, well, what is our place in the world today? Yeah.
There's another question. I was thinking when you were talking earlier about relationships, customer relations, CRM, I think you mentioned. We all know that Apple have certainly developed a very strong, and that homeless picture was a great picture on that one there. Okay, how is, and you guys do e-commerce as part of e-marketing. How do you think technology and e-marketing, e-commerce has been able to assist firms build a stronger relationship with their customers?
No, technology has been, in terms of building relationships, has been one of the best things. And I'll just use myself as an example. I have a Google account, I have a Gmail account, and so I also have YouTube and all this kind of stuff. I don't know if anyone else here has experienced the whole point of going from one site to the next, maybe going from a YouTube video to your email account, only to see on the right side ads that are tailored specifically to whatever it is you were browsing about, right? So technology has really revolutionized the relationship building process because things are more targeted to you now. It's not just random ads, right? So technology with things like cookies, where you pretty much, as you browse the net, you leave these cookie crumbs that companies can, buy access to track where you're going, right? So the way I'd answer that question is, who's your best friend? Who knows you more than anyone else? Google, right? Google knows you better than anyone else. There's all kinds of stuff that you look up online that even the person, your best friend sitting next to you, you're not going to tell them. Google knows that. So what does that mean in terms of a relationship? Well, that's your best friend, right? So technology has been amazing. Now, it's been so good that it's almost moving over to the other side of being almost unethical, to where it's too good. They know too much almost, right? And that's actually the sort of issues that you guys will be tackling as you move on into the future, is actually what are the ethical issues within how effective technology is in terms of selling to people? Because we're talking about also being able to target children, right? We're talking about privacy issues, right? We're even talking about things that people necessarily shouldn't be buying. But then, if someone is so good, someone that knows you better than anyone else can get you to buy anything, right? So no, technology has been amazing in that regard. So sorry, Greg, I just wanted to quickly also ask everyone, what is the right price? A lot? For anything? So something people expect for a better... Okay. Perfect. I wasn't expecting that. I've asked that question a million times, and but yes, the right price. It's not the lowest price. It's not the highest price. It's not even the price that your competitors are charging, right? The right price for your particular product, right? Because you figured out what the right product is, right? You've really, nailed it in terms of what people really want that even they don't know they want, right? And then you sent the right promotional message through your advertising, through your public relations, through direct selling or whatever else, right? You've positioned yourself in the right place, right? In terms of particular retail outlets or, particular places that people really want to be, right? The right price then for you is the price that people are willing to pay for what you've offered, right? The price that people, because guess what? We all raise our hands to say we have Apple products, right? We know that this is one of the most expensive out there. We don't need to buy that, but we will. And no one here has looked at, well, how much does it actually cost them to make? Who here knows how much it costs to make an iPhone? 210, right? But guess what? If Apple decides, well, it costs us 210 to make an iPhone, so let's charge $200, you're not interested anymore, right? Because for what they represent relative to everyone else, you are willing to pay $1,000. You're willing to. Yeah? So the right price is the price that the customer is willing to pay. And you can pretty much direct that based on what you offer. Now, don't get me wrong, it doesn't have to be Apple, right? It could be on the other end, it could be Aldi. We all know Aldi, the grocery store, right? So we know, remember we talked about physical evidence. When you walk into a place, the evidence, like Kohl's and Woolworths, they have their nice shelves and everything looks nice. You walk into Aldi, you have just pallets and just stuff, right? There's no frills. That sends a message to us, doesn't it? So at Aldi, and guess what? The Aldi brands are often made by the same people that make the premium brands at Kohl's and Woolies. But because of how it's presented, we are willing to pay less, right? And they're fine with that because that's their strategy. Yeah? Okay. I asked the other question is, what products can you sell to everyone? So I guess I answered it myself. I said like toilet paper or water, right? So what I like to do is to have people quickly check on their phones just type in most expensive toilet paper. And we can do that at home as well if we have, computers. Just quickly type in most expensive toilet paper. And the first person that sees anything, let me know what numbers you see. 1.3 million. So we're all customers for that, aren't we? Yes? 22 karat gold, so a bit of bling for your... So everyone here is a customer for that, right? Not really? Why? It's toilet paper. We agreed earlier that, yes, hopefully we all use toilet paper. Right? So we need to segment. There's a customer for that. Who it is, I don't think I want to know, but they're there. Right? So... And same thing for, and that's an extreme example, obviously, but guess what? If you walk up and down the Woolworths aisles, right, whether it's water, bread, or toilet paper, you'll find a range of prices where one brand could be 10 times the price of the next for the same thing, toilet paper, right? And there are customers that would not buy that one that's 50 cents. They would never buy it. They will always buy the one that's $10. Yeah. And the last thing about branding, yeah, again on your phones, quickly type in Apple brand value. Yeah, the brand value of Apple, and quickly tell me what numbers you get. We can do this at home as well. $173 billion US, which I guess equates to 230 billion Australian, for the brand. Not for the company, not for any of not for the Apple stores, nothing. Right? For the Apple, the actual sign, Apple. Or not just the sign, that's part of it, right? Because the brand elements are what? The logos, the name, all these things together. But it's that perception that we have, right? So when I asked this earlier, who wants to be like this guy? And I asked how many people own an Apple product, do we feel like we understand why? Everyone raised their hand. Don't feel bad. Remember, I asked you want to be like this guy? You guys, I envy you because you are in a position to do the same thing with whatever you're passionate about, right? You can take these sort of things and channel that to whatever it is that you're passionate about. Yeah. So when we say that the Apple brand is worth 174 billion, it means we're that much more willing to choose that product. When we have a quick decision to make, right? That last minute decision, that influence that they have to make us, not to make us, but for us to choose that, to maybe even influence someone else. That brand. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, I'm just looking at my Apple Watch, and the time has come, so there you go. We're very happy.
I don't have an Apple phone or, yeah. I'm trying to resist.
Right. Yeah. Okay, let's do a round of applause for that sensational. Is that online going to be repeated for the students if they access that? Because I'd highly recommend in a week's time having a look at that again and just getting some ideas, because there's so many you would have went over here. So if you watched it a couple of times, you'll be able to absorb a lot more, and I think there'll be things you could really tap into for your HSC and obviously for the future for your own marketing point of view. Thank you very much for that.
Thanks, Greg.
Now, I think
there was a break scheduled for now, but we're actually going to go straight into the next session for the Strengths Finder.